Hi, welcome back. My name is Kogi Itui, and I'm the author of the book, The Unscrambled Manifesto of Africa. Today, let me indulge you in talking about food in this continent. How do we address the pertinent issue of food? And it's a huge topic in my book, and it covers many pages, but I will just go through 3 pages. I'm only allowed to go through 3 pages, and I hope we shall have a snippet of what it entails. Let me go directly to it uh, and see what happens. Africans do not care of what they eat, while others are frantic about food reserves, to the extent of having reserves of several years. Here, our clever leaders say it's a reason to celebrate when we have 3 months reserves. What a pity. Indeed, we are in a comfort zone where we can grow our food all the year round, unlike in the temperate regions where they have to contend with the extreme seasons. Yet it's not all rosy because we are in the tropical zones where all the wild pests find it most favorable to thrive. Also, due to global climatic change, our very own deleterious cultures of overgrazing and deforestation, we have found ourselves in an unpredictable weather pattern, and we cannot depend wholly on rain-fed agriculture. We have to take up irrigation, and this irrigation technology is not for people jeopardized in planning systems, enforcement or implementation disciplines, and neither is it for those with a curse of having an affinity to steal from themselves, and that is corruption. When Kenyan leaders emphasize that we need to irrigate our land, we are not interested in achieving the results but in the injected capital required for such ventures by which they lay their effective saints to entrap a large chunk of it. This is evidenced in the turn of events in the hyped Galana Kulalu irrigation scheme in Kenya, which failed even after being bolstered by the great Israelis government. After it failed, I'm sure the Israelis went home with a very clear picture of where our priorities are. We did not intend to be food sufficient. We wanted an avenue to steal, and then after a few months of drought, the same thugs will announce that hunger has become a national disaster, and they will go even to the very same Israeli government to solicit for food. These are the kind of pathetic puppets that lead us. In Kenya, for instance, there is a similarly clear pattern taking shape. In a period of 5 years, the term of the presidency, we go through 2 above normal rainfalls, 2 normal or below normal rainfall years, and 1 dry year, especially just before the elections. And this is the reason as to why many citizens sell their votes in the electoral year just for the exchange of a packet of maize flour, a wheat flour, sugar, and some cooking fat. Yet time and again we fall short of planning and getting self-reliant to feed our ever-growing population. Each year we add approximately 1 million new citizens, yet with no counterbalancing food productivity. In fact, on the contrary, production is dwindling. The average of the Kenyan farmer average age has stubbornly remained above 60 years of age, and one of their consistent characters is that they have a flexible waistline to tighten their belts on when they are misused and abused by the same government. They must wield an impeccable eternal patience of self-slavery to perpetually try feeding the nation even when it doesn't make economical or logical sense to do so. They may produce, deliver to the National Cereals Board, which then takes an entire year to figure out which meager premium they should pay them with, and sometimes that money is swindled by crocodiles. Even in these small national silos, there is no meticulous care. Year after year, we are entreated to excuses explaining how close to 1 million bags of grains have gone bad and it's going to be destroyed. Then following this revelation, the same crocodiles are off to offshore countries ordering an importation of grains to fill the deficit. There is no nation that can take flight on the path of development and civilization if 98% of their populace spends 60% of their productive energy thinking and laboring for what they will eat that day. But our African puppet governments want to convince us that we can develop via importation of food or by copying all that the developed masters did in many sectors, but for what they did to make sure that food security is hyper paramount, food reserves close to 20 years. Horses and cattle feeding on corn to feed to their field. Their pets having packaged food. The goats feeding on loaves of bread, and some production crops being used for producing bioenergy, since their large silos are full to the brim. These things need not be copied according to the puppet governments. In fact, sometimes farmers there in those developed countries are paid not to produce. What must we do? We must invest in earnest and honesty in programs aimed in making Kenya food sufficient. We must reclaim the Asas, which are our largest land reserves. We cannot afford to cast the only thing we have. We must kickstart mitigation measures to halt desertification immediately and to start a charm offensive in reclaiming these lands back to optimal productivity. For start, we should begin with the addressing of grazing and introduce a culture of planning and to grow herds. Growing herds subjected to the mercy of climate change, by which, when the conditions are favorable, they proliferate in their thousands, but when they face an acute drought, they die in their millions. Should be an archived culture belonging to the 15th century, not this 21st century. If the wild beasts in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti National Reserves do know how to follow an instinctual pasture management program that ensures a healthy herd throughout the years, having done it almost picture perfect for thousands of decades, why can't our pastoralists hunch up such a plan? It's a pity. By now, we should be having a government-run borehole water troughs strategically placed all over the Asas to water the grazing domestic and wild animals there. A working grazing pasture management program that limits where and when to graze and what time of the year to give room for restoration and pastoral-friendly rotation, added with a tribal-sensitive robust conflict resolution scheme to end the backward culture of cattle rustling. We should also have consistent pest control programs like installation of the novel hormone trick traps all over the land. This is a pest that should be extinct in Kenya by now. Well-coordinated vaccination programs that ensure that our meat is high standards, and I insist, foremost for us, before we have a surplus that we shall export to the international markets, even a surplus and even surpass the European Union standards of safety. Why are we settling for less? To be honest with you, I fear consuming meat from Asas grown cattle, for I have heard of how they inject vaccines or medicines that should be given a period of maybe 28 or maybe 60 days before the animal is fit for human consumption. But since they do not mark the treated animals on the flock after they administer such a treatment, few days later, if a buyer turns up, they may decide to sell some in their flock, and believe me, they do not select off the ones that receive the treatment. They can't, since they can't remember which one, for their flocks are great in number. All are sold and slaughtered, and we ingest these chemicals, some of which slowly lead to the rise of diseases such as cancer. But if the government takes charge and develops a code of mark to mark the treated animals, even buyers coming from the cities would know that a cow marked in a yellow paint, for example, on its back, has been recently injected with a vaccine or medicine, and hopefully with the incorporation of scientific technology, the paint can have a code of expiry limit. For instance, yellow paint is 28 days, blue paint is 60 days, and this paint should be formulated to completely disappear once after the lapse of these days. Across the Asas, also, the land should have draining water collection reservoirs designed in such a manner They are located at the point where drainage contours converge for optimal collection of flood water during the rainy season. For it is true of what is said, when it rains in the arid and semi-arid lands, it rains mightily. Indulge me as I stop there. You can buy my book in Amazon.com and read the extra part. Thank you very much.